Brew, I think we'll start with you. It's super macro, zoomed out question. Are you still confident Lamar will win a Super Bowl?
He better. He better.
The Bucks.
Good one, Coach.
He better. Look, because this is the price of greatness, of historic greatness, right? All the other, he's one of 11 guys who won multiple MVPs. All the other 10 won a championship. That's the club you're in now. You don't want to be the only one without a Super Bowl ring. So I'm going to say yes because of the history. He's still playing great. I said it earlier in the week. Even last year was a down year. He clearly was off, but he still had a 103 passer rating. Still was second in the league in touchdown percentage. So even in a bad year and a clunky year in and out of the lineup, he still put up good numbers. He's still clearly in his prime. He's got a great organization that's always going to put a solid defense with him. He's got good receivers. I don't know that he needs great ones right now. He's got good enough ones, tight ends. And right now, you just got to, even without Derrick Henry, they always have a strong run game. So I believe he will eventually win the championship. And here's the thing. You can't use and same for Josh Allen, but you can't use man, it was Mahomes and Josh Allen were in the way. No, because now Drake May's gotten to a Super Bowl. Sam Darnold, of all people, has won a Super Bowl. So, yeah, he still got, I think, a good amount of time. Look at Elway and others like that. But, yeah, I do feel like he's going to get at least one.
And I've always felt that but Mahomes was there was a way more valid excuse or reason for Josh than Lamar. Because Josh 4 times has been beaten by Patrick in the playoffs. Lamar, they've only played once. Now, Patrick beat him, but it was it's not like again and again and again he's losing to him. And Brew, you talked about 2-time MVPs. It's a very short list of 1-time MVP quarterbacks who have never at least been to a Super Bowl. And he's on that list. The Matt Ryan,
the other ones that haven't been to one?
Josh.
Josh Allen is obviously on it, and I had
Ryan went.
I had this. I don't have it off the top of my head. But it's not a long list. Is the point? Rich Gannon, your favorite MVP, made a Super Bowl. But I am not confident. Do I think he can? Absolutely. Do I think he has to get over his playoff woes to win one? No, I don't. Peyton Manning, in my opinion, never got over his playoff woes. Peyton Manning, when he was certainly the year they won his first Super Bowl, in that playoff run, he had 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in the playoffs. Prime Peyton Manning, and they won anyway. If you are constantly in the mix, sometimes things can just break your way, and that's, and your greatness gets you constantly in the mix, and you don't necessarily have to carry your team to it once you get there. And then you're minted forever. Nobody cares that Peyton wasn't great in that playoff run.
Yeah, I don't know why this is the window and last year wasn't the window. I picked him to go to the Super Bowl last year, but what's different this year that suddenly is going to propel them into the Super Bowl? You change the coaching staff. Maybe that's going to have a dramatic impact, but there is a learning curve for a new head coach that they go through, and he had a significant amount of injuries last season, and is this the function of we've seen a lot of good young running quarterbacks, but not a lot of good old ones? Are those body blows starting to add up? What was it last year? 20 less touchdowns, 3 more interceptions. So the numbers were good, but a little bit deceptively good, and you kept waiting for him to take over games or to get out of his slump, and it never happened. Now, should they be in the mix if he plays like Lamar in his MVP seasons? Of course they're going to be in the mix, but there's new challenges with the changing coaching staff that weren't there last year. Maybe those will be positive, but I just don't see what's so dramatically.
Okay. I've been thinking about this because this is one of the rare clips for me where I didn't see the clip, but I knew the bot, I knew the question, and I was just like I didn't record it right then and there. And so, I'd been thinking about this now for the last hour or so. And ironically, I'd already just recorded a Lamar Jackson clip with the herd that was Collins pretty much talking about the Ravens could move on from Lamar next, they could draft another quarterback and his cap hits through the roof and all of that. And so, that's a whole separate conversation that, that video should already be posted. This one, but it's what really frustrates me about this is that again, it's the wrong question. I get why it's phrased this way in terms of still confident Lamar will win a Super Bowl and not the Baltimore Ravens. I appreciate on one side, I appreciate them phrasing it this way and then having this conversation because then it allows me to have my take and my view in a way where if they didn't then my views it would already be speaking and for me or I wouldn't have to form my own view. And so, I can appreciate it from a strict entertainment standpoint. But it's just the wrong question. And it doesn't we have to draw these lines between when a quarterback is letting his team down and when the team is letting the quarterback down. We know this. We always look at a team and a quarterback through separate but similar lenses in a way that we don't do any other player, right? We're not does Derrick Henry need to win a Super Bowl, right? And then we all understand that. We all get that it's quarterback. But, here's the reality. And this is where Lamar's case has always been multiple things are true at the same time. We know Brock Purdy's been to a Super Bowl. We know Jimmy Garoppolo's been to a Super Bowl. We know Jalen Hurts has been to multiple Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl. Drake May Super Bowl. Sam Darnold Super Bowl, won Super Bowl. We have endless examples. And again, I always encourage everyone to not go too far back in time cause it just whatever happened in 2007 or something doesn't matter. Let's just talk about the modern NFL coaches that are still in the league right now, a lot of the same players, etc. There are many situations that Lamar if he just simply played for a more organized, better team he would have come away with some victories here. That would have either got him to a Super Bowl and then who knows. I don't want to go farther than win a Super Bowl because who truly knows what you look like in said Super Bowl. Although, I don't think it's a far stretch to say that if they just got past the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023, they would have beat the 49ers cause they destroyed the 49ers a few weeks prior to that in the regular season. They lit them up. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. It was one of the first games I watched and then made videos about. I remember that. Cause it was the Ravens played the Dolphins, then they played the 49ers cause it was it was looked at very heavily because it was is Tua the MVP or is Lamar the MVP? Then he destroys Tua and they're okay, so he's not the MVP. So, it's is it Purdy the MVP? Right? And it's they destroy them and it's okay, so he's not the MVP. And then it was people were really looking at the Ravens as the number one team and the 49ers as the number one team. And then we saw that game and I was this isn't even close. And then of course, they have the game against Kansas City Chiefs, the game that I've talked about at such great length. And that was, in a lot of ways, a crazy game because the defense held the Chiefs to minimal. But even then, the Chiefs still out the individual players elevated. Travis Kelce made some unbelievable catches and some unbelievable plays. Andy Reid dialed up not even just the play call itself, but the timing of the play call, so brilliant. Mahomes executed as great as you would ever need him to. But yet, they were still only held to 17 points. 17 points. And so, that means the Ravens' defense did answer the call. And then even to give up those 17 points, like I just said, you were doing it up. Against brilliant play calling and brilliant execution and then literally unbelievable catches from Kelce, etc. So, you can't say that the Ravens let that down cause that they answered the call there. But then offensively, they were such a mess and the play calling was so bizarre. They refused to hand them it was such a mess and yes, Lamar did not play his best version of football. But at the same time, there was no situation for him to really rise to the occasion. And so they lost. Obviously. Then 2024, the defense did decent enough job, did better than what the Chiefs did against the Buffalo Bills. So the defense did a decent enough job. Obviously didn't hold them to 17, but still did enough. And the offense was both better and worse because now again, you don't get the best version of Lamar either. But then he did rise to the occasion. Then he did put his team in a position to win. And then they dropped the ball. Like literally dropped the ball. And those are the 2 years really that you can really point to. And really be like, what do we have here? And maybe, the Ravens face the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Who knows? Now that was obviously divisional round. You would have had to have gotten past the Chiefs and whatnot. So who knows? But Eagles definitely beat the Ravens in the regular season and it was a good game. The Eagles definitely were in control of that game, but it was certainly a heck of a lot closer than whatever the heck the Chiefs did against the Eagles. So again, when you're talking about a single game, who really knows? Any of the stuff that happened prior to that, specifically 23 and 24, when you start to dig into like when Lamar was really young and this and that, like you start to kind of go a little bit too farther back in time to very specific situations that I'm a little bit less concerned with. And now when you fast forward to the present construction of this team and the execution and what they look to do, like it's just Messier. It's just a lot Messier. And I don't think it's fair to pretty much be like, well, the difference between winning and losing a Super Bowl right now is just is Lamar good enough? Right? And it doesn't mean that there's not instances that the quarterback clearly needs to be great in order to win, or they don't need to be great and they can still win. And I always go back to the Brock Purdy example. Brock Purdy was a major contributing factor as to why the 49ers got to the Super Bowl. No question. And he was not the reason why they lost the Super Bowl. But he could have been the reason why they won. He absolutely could have been the reason why they won. And he wasn't. That's why I always say, if he was just 5% better, they win the Super Bowl. His defense also held Patrick Mahomes to only 19 points in regulation. This is like, yeah, it's pretty great. And there was Air was not that next thing. And that's what's up, because again, Lamar did that next year, but then it wasn't enough. And then in the other year, like he wasn't, there was not that next year. Not only did the team fail, but also like there was also not that next year. So it's just a Messier picture. But like Drake May during the playoffs was obviously not great, but got to the Super Bowl. It called up to him in this Super Bowl, but he got to the Super J, Sam Darnold, he was spectacular in the NFC Championship game. No doubt about it. He did not need to be spectacular in the Super Bowl. And in fact, he made a couple throws that easily could have been intercepted. It could have been a pick six, like it could have completely changed that game. Especially if Drake May in that and was better and that defense for the Seahawks wasn't as good. Then it's just like, then who really knows? And so we can simultaneously praise a quarterback like a Sam Darnold for being able to do what he did and then play great in the NFC Championship game, acknowledge that it was like a fortunate situation, how great the defense was, blah blah, like we can have those layered complex conversations. One of the problems with Lamar Jackson is that this is where you can't compare it to, say, maybe like even like a Brock Purdy or a Sam Darnold or a Drake May. Is that one, we know the level of talent of who Lamar Jackson is as an individual, combined with the fact that like we do see him for the most part year after year after year going up against the other current gods of the NFL, right? Going up against Mahomes, going up against Josh Allen, against Joe Burrow. Like we see that. And so it's always kind of like, well, what do you got? What do you got? What do you bring? Where are you? And that's, what always then ends up kind of getting us in these conversations where it's like, do you think Lamar, are you confident Lamar? And it's just like, well, it's got to be about the Ravens. It's got to be about the decisions and who shows up for the Ravens. We saw a peak example of that just this past season when you missed a field goal. And it's just like Josh Allen was on the receiving end of that happening in 23-23. Yeah, 23 against the Chiefs and having his receivers drop balls and miss field goals and blah blah, and it's just like, yeah. And you can always point to an example or a moment when the quarterback wasn't good enough, when he made a bad throw, when he got intercepted, when he fumbled the ball. Like that happens with Mahomes, that happens with Tom Brady, that happens with Kyler Murray, that happens with Lamar, that happens with Josh Allen, with all of them. But it's just like, how does the team as a whole play? And the reality is that like I could point to Brock Purdy and the 49ers in that moment, even though you had the muffed punt, you had the Christian McCaffrey fumble, you had the Greenlaw injury. Like, you had all of these things that I could say, man, if just one of those things doesn't happen, the 49ers win the Super Bowl. And Brock Purdy was not why they lost, but if he was just a little bit better, they win. And I'm so confident in that statement. With Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, I can't simply sit here and say if Lamar was just simply 5% better, they win the Super Bowl. Right? Like they either get to the Super Bowl, they win, like there is no specific situation. That to me, when you are Lamar, when you are Josh Allen, when you are Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, when you are the type of quarterback where we are like, are you the greatest or one of the greatest we've ever seen? If they had a Brock Purdy type Super Bowl, that type of experience, then yes, that should hang on them. That should be part of the conversation. It's why I look at a Jalen Hurts and be like, you did elevate. That's why I hold a Jalen Hurts Super Bowl to a high regard, both Super Bowls really, because I'm like, you truly elevated. If you got Jalen Hurts a Super Bowl in 22 and the 40 with the 49ers in 23, the 49ers win, and they win by a lot. Right? And so it's just like the elevation matters so much. But the reality is that there hasn't really been a situation where now I can just point and just say, Lamar, you simply failed. You can still be imperfect. It's why I still didn't even blame Josh Allen for the loss against the Denver Broncos. It was obviously an imperfect game, don't get me wrong. But then when you put that together with all the other plays and all the other failures of the other team, right? It's just like it becomes more of a collective failure rather than an individual failure. And yet it feels like when we talk about Lamar Jackson, we're just like it is an individual failure year after year. And it's just not the case, and there just hasn't been this specific opportunity. Like really both Super Bowls, quite frankly, for the 49ers and for with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, those are probably the two best examples of that situation. When you can say, yeah, the quarterback was obviously a contributor. We don't have to minimize their impact like other people try to do, but we can also acknowledge if you just played a little bit better, you come away with that win. You can maybe make that argument with Drake May and the Patriots if he just was better, but like, I credit that defense, and that game was so one-sided. I think it's a lot harder to kind of make that argument there. You're not going to make that argument with Patrick Mahomes against the Eagles in that Super Bowl. Joe Burrow versus Matthew Stafford, maybe, but like, that O-line was a mess as well. And that defense for the Rams was the second half of the season into the playoffs, especially Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, like, you're going up against it. So I think it's a little bit harder. That's why I think those are kind of like the perfect examples of both 49ers teams. And I just think we have to be honest about that conversation. And that's why like everybody was like, oh, Drake May got to a Super Bowl before, Josh Allen and Lamar. And it's just like, yeah, what does that tell you about the organization? Like those are organizational successes and not an indictment on Lamar and Josh Allen. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl. I understand that Jimmy Garoppolo had really good little run and he got injured and that. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. Like it's not even close. It's not even close. So, I think the conversation still needs to be more about the Ravens as a whole. And man, Jeannie's kind of like, oh, well, there's going to be growing pains and this and that and blah blah. And it's just like, well, we see turnarounds happen really fast. Jesse Minter, if he can get that defense legit, that field, that'll be good. And Lamar is just a better version of whoever he was last year, whether it's because of injuries, whatever the reason may be. If that defense takes a big step forward under Jesse Minter's, coaching, and it becomes like a top 5 defense, which is definitely in the realm of possibility. They certainly were able to do that with the Chargers, seemingly overnight. And now you have Lamar Jackson, you got the bodies that you have, then you will be competitive, you will be within striking distance of getting to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. And then the rest then does come down to execution. And if the game unfolds in a way where it's like, okay, Lamar, like this is on your shoulders right now. What do you got? And it's just like, we can't make that prediction until we just simply see how the game unfold, like how does this unfold? What was the reason why they won or lost for that matter? But it is just kind of interesting to see a question like this. Still confident Lamar will win a Super Bowl. It's like, what is the conversation you're trying to have? Is Lamar good enough to win a Super Bowl? Does he have a problem in the playoffs? Does he play for a team that doesn't show up in the play? Like, what is the actual convert? Are we trying to have like a more general like philosophical discussion of just kind of like, well, there's only so many Super Bowls to go around and you only have so many years left to be great. Like, well, what do you know, blah 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 blah, like what is it, like what is the story here? And again, I'll end here. Just look at even the Kansas City Chiefs run. And Patrick Mahomes obviously run. Just think of all the things that needed to go right. I mean, like virtually every moment that the Kansas City Chiefs won, they easily could have lost. They easily could have lost to the Ravens. They easily could have lost to the Bills. They easily could have lost to the Bengals. They easily could have lost to the 49ers. They easily could have lost to the Eagles. Easily. Like it was at they needed all of the things to happen how they happened just for them to skirt on by and win multiple Super Bowls. Like it's pretty crazy when you actually really zoom into it. That the Kansas City Chiefs have 3 Super Bowls and they could technically have 0. Everyone always says, oh, if Jimmy Garoppolo made that throw, the 49ers win that Super Bowl. Right? And I told you, technically with the 49ers, it was a collection like they needed the muffed punt, the fumble by Christian McCaffrey, Greenlaw going down, who Patrick Mahomes torched his replacement, torched. It was like a touchdown of 140 passer rating and like 100 yards like just off of whoever he was covering. I forget who it was. But and it was just like, oh my goodness. And that still went to overtime. And a whole quarter of overtime just to come away with that win, right? Like it just needed a series of things. A holding penalty against the Eagles. Whether it was a holding or not doesn't matter, it still came about. And Patrick Mahomes was not going to throw a touchdown pass to whatever receiver it was. Do matter what anyone tries to convince you. And oh again, I'm not saying that they still wouldn't have won, but it would have changed everything. They could have a field goal and the Eagles were obviously scoring a ton and Jalen Hurts was on one. So, it's like who knows. Maybe they score a field goal and now it's tied up and then who the heck knows, or maybe they score a touchdown, it's such a fine line. It's such a fine line. And for teams like the Bills and the Ravens, that fine line has just consistently bounced the other way for them. And it's just not like, well, that's because it's Lamar. And that's because it's Josh. Like that's the only difference. It's like, There's a lot of other factors here. There's a lot of other factors. Like again, the Bills lost like multiple players on defense against the Kansas City Chiefs, literally multiple playoff games. Have we seen that situation with the Ravens going up against, either the Bills or the Chiefs, in 20 like did that happen? They lose? Key got to have is Chris Jones like out of the lineup now and you're like, wow, that's a huge boost for the rate like no. No. Right? You'll have people like MVS or Kelsey whatever like truly elevate and rise to the occasion. The Ravens say, Flowers is going to make I'm going to fumble the ball right now. I'm going to get a 15 yards penalty. Mark Andrews is like, oh, Kelsey's making like diving backwards catches. I'm going to drop 2-point conversions, baby. Let's go. I'm going to fumble the ball. Let's go. And it's just like, what? The Ravens are missing 40-some yard field goals and Chiefs are drilling 55 yards field goals. Right? Like these things really do matter. They really do matter. And we can have both conversations about a quarterback needing to be better, about a quarterback coming up short, but then also looking at the team as a whole as well. I do believe that there is definitely a portion of blame to go on to Lamar. I'm not saying Lamar doesn't deserve any blame or this that. Like Lamar does need to be better, but the Ravens need to be better more so than Lamar needs to be better. The fact that Lamar has not won a Super Bowl is more about the Ravens than it is Lamar. That's really to me the biggest point to drive home that I think these conversations often lose sight of. But it doesn't mean that Lamar doesn't deserve any blame or that we shouldn't have conversations about like he needs to be better, etc., right? It's not one or the other. We can have a nuanced, grounded, non-super emotional conversation about this stuff. Especially in April. Okay. I understand things get a little bit hotter, a little bit heated in September and October and November and December. It's April. We haven't even gotten to the draft yet. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Lamar Jackson? Are you still confident he will win a Super Bowl? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.